Hey, folks, welcome to the Red State Coach podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about the crisis of manhood and what our youth are facing. With me today is a good friend of mine. I've known him since we were in high school together. We're both part of the Sabino Hall of Fame. This guy has been working with kids for 45 plus years. He started as a coach because he loved football, but what he really ended up doing was loving kids and having an impact on young men. And so he's seen quite a lot of issues and challenges that young men have gone through and continue to go through, and is instrumental in helping them navigate those challenges. So without further ado, he's known throughout Tucson as Coach Ross, my good friend Ross Robato. Ross, welcome to doing this. This is our first time, so we're going to do this together.
Fantastic. Thanks for having me.
Hey, so, we talked about, or I talked about in the beginning, the crisis that our youth are going through. And so my first question to you, what are the three primary issues you think young men face today?
Well, I want to start by saying when I talk about these kids and their problems, I still believe that the majority of our young men are great, high quality kids. They just work the world a little differently than I do. So I tend to worry about that. My father worried about me as well, and his father worried about him for the same reasons, and we all seem to find our way. Well, I think, for me, with the kids that I've dealt with, one of the biggest problems with our young men is their self-confidence. We struggle now for leaders. Leaders used to show themselves. It was just they rose to the top, and they couldn't help. They were leaders from when they were kids. In my opinion, our young men are afraid to be leaders because you have to put yourself out there and you have to make decisions and order people around, and they're not comfortable with those tasks anymore. I think a lot of guys are afraid, well, if I'm too bossy, I'm going to get ridiculed in social media. And that's a tough one. So, I think self-confidence is a big issue with our young guys. That's one thing. I think also an issue is we're getting a lot less support from some of the dads, and some of the dads are not there. We have so many young men that they're living with grandma and grandpa or just mom or something like that. And, I can pick them out before I even know this. And I even meet them just by the way, their personalities and how they react to things. So having a male there is just huge. It really is.
So how do you fit in or put yourself in that situation when you know that a kid is lacking some male leadership and certainly some guidance? How do you then fill that void?
Well, I always promote being the leader, being the guy. And I really try to sell that with our young guys. You want to be the captain of this deal. You want to be out there and make a difference, make a huge difference. Don't be part of the herd. You want to be the lead dog sometimes. So I try to make it an appealing situation. And I am one of the old school guys that I'll not make fun of their fear of the phone or social media, but I shake my head and tell them, a real man doesn't worry about that. If you live your life a certain way, you should have no problem with not so much ridicule, but people having something to say about you. That's the way I've always done it. I mean, I live what I feel is an honest, character-filled life, and just by the way I live and the way I work, I try to set that kind of example for any young man who's interested in watching.
Well, you talked about being a guy of character, and I know that we both believe that, Ollie Mayfield, our high school coach, was instrumental in developing that character and leading by example, being the guy, the role model of character for us. And that kind of stayed with us. But who else has impacted your life that led you to, do the things that you do? Who are you modeling yourself after? Who was influential in your life?
Well, I've got what I call my top five, and far and above number two is number one, my dad. My dad was the greatest influence in my life.
Amen.
And he's been gone 2 years now or so, and I miss him terribly. But I always, my dad was always the guy who stood up for right. He was always the guy that what the first things he taught my brothers and I were, there are two things that are despicable in life: a liar and a thief. And if you could not be either of those, you're going to work out okay. If you're honest with people and you get what's deserved and not what's the word now, what all the kids are
Entitled.
Yes, he wasn't entitled. He came from a very poor home. They lived in a cold water flat. I don't know if young people know what the hell that is, but that's a house without a bathroom and without inside water. And they lived in New Jersey, and there were 4 families in one little house. And he made that sound like it was the greatest thing in the world. It was, oh, no, we didn't. And they were never bitter about what they didn't have. They were positive about what the Lord gave them. So, that's the way I was brought up. Not to bitch about what I don't have or what the next guy's got. Like for me, I'm a car guy. When I see a guy with a great car, I go, man, that son of a gun, I go, man, God bless you. I think that's wonderful what you did. And I wish, more people would be a little less jealous and a little less selfish about that and be happy when somebody else succeeds. And my dad was, up until he died at 89 and a half years old, I went to him almost daily for advice because, he was always honest and always right, and he never steered me wrong. And, if I ended up being half the man my dad was, I am a total success in life. So dad is my guy. My gramps was a great guy, but my dad was the man, period.
Well, and I'm with you on that. My dad was an incredible influence for me, even though he's been gone since 1981. There are still sayings and little tidbits of information that he would dole out that I still remember to this day. Yeah, I think our dads are huge. And so who was number 2 and 3 for you?
Well, Ollie Mayfield, as same with you. Ollie was a guy that convinced us and convinced me that, you got to do is have the right attitude and try and persevere. Because, I'll give everybody a little history. RJ and I played on a football team at a brand new school. And there were growing pains, and we started our careers as high school football players, winning our first game our freshman year against Tucson High, 7-6. And then we proceeded to go 19 straight games our sophomore and junior year without a win. And you talk about, finding out whether you have character or not. That's it. I mean, we had a math teacher named Ed, and I won't say his last name, but they had a weekly poll to see how much we'd lose by. I found out about that, and I wrote a letter in the news, our Cat Tracks newsletter that said, show a little pride. And, I let them know that was really crappy. But Ollie Mayfield came in, and we had that meeting in the gym, and he said, if you think you're beaten, you are. If you think you dare not, you don't. And we bought it, and we believed it. And he changed my life so dramatically that everything I do, football-wise, is just regurgitating what he taught us. I don't claim to have any of that knowledge. I'm just passing on that treasure of knowledge that he gave me and my dad gave me. And, you throw it all out there and you hope these guys pick up 1 or 2 things out of it. And that'll help a bunch,
Exactly. What about number 3? Who's number 3 on your list?
Well, I want to say Number three is my younger brother. My younger brother did, and I'm not gonna say he didn't have talent. He had plenty of talent, but my older brother was natural on the field. I was given speed and things like that, and tenacity. My brother was an average guy who played way above average and worked his tail off to be great. Where when the other, the good guy sits in the locker room and hangs out, he's out there doing extra. Um, he ends up. He was always been a football coach, always been the guy I wanted to be, and his impact is so huge and widespread. I meet his players all the time, and they tell me what a gift it was for them to be exposed to him. And I think he's the greatest guy in the world, and he's, I think, one of the most successful defensive football coaches in high school football in the entire nation. He's part of that Friday Night Lights group in Texas. But my younger brother is just like my dad, a man of tremendous character, unwavering, and that's my third.
Nice. Now you talked about kids, and I think we both coached different sports in our adulthood, but I think we understood that if you wanted to get somewhere, you had to work hard. And the big thing about working hard was making sure that you, especially when you were tired after working hard, that you kept your fundamentals sound, that you kept your mental edge sharp. And how do you think incorporating that into, the kind of practices you had and the expectations of hard work, but of doing the right things even when you're tired, how do you think or hope that translated to kids as they moved on in life?
Well, I think character is something that absolutely has to be taught. And I try in my travels as a coach, I try to show that I am a man of I'm a player's guy. I will do anything I can to make your life better or more successful. Same with my coaches. That's why I don't coach. That's why I do facilities work. I do the dishes. I do the food. I do the laundry. I do all the nasty stuff so they can spend their time directly mentoring and coaching these young men. So I do a lot of things that, they'll laugh at or they'll make a little fun of, but they know darn well that's the reason we are successful. It's all in the details for me. So when I take care of every little detail and I'm kind of nasty about it, adamant about it, to me, that's showing a great deal of character. My example, we have garbage cans in the locker room, and if a kid's got an empty Gatorade bottle or something, he'll take a nice set shot there, and if he misses the can, does he continue to walk out of the locker room and leave the locker room that way, or does he take the time to go back and dang, and I don't want to do it, but you do it? To me, that's character. We have so many young people now that it's okay to just drop what you're doing or leave it for the next guy, I'll say. I never leave it for the next guy. I take care of every single detail, so there's never a question. I think that's one of the strongest things that I teach. To be thorough, to have pride in what you do, no matter what it is. I'm washing stinky uniforms, and I take a great deal of pride in how they come out and how the athlete sees his uniform on his locker after it's ready for a game. So I try to teach as much character as I can. Character is something we are terribly lacking. And unfortunately, it's something that should be taught more at home. But this generation, I'm not saying they don't have character, but they're not teaching it properly. I mean, another example, drive down the road and look at the roadside. I've never seen in my life more litter on our roadsides. And that's all. That has nothing to do with anything but pride and character. So if my dad will throw something out the window, why shouldn't I? And that's kind of what's going on. Well, my dad doesn't give a shit. Why should I?
No,
You're right. That's a big thing.
It's the examples that men set for not only their kids, but for any kids that are coming along.
Yeah.
So, understanding that we need to teach character, what advice would you give to fathers and grandfathers out there in terms of how can they be effective in directing our male youth to become the men that we need them to be as they move into adulthood?
Well, to the dads, it's almost like, hey, gosh, you're right in the middle of being a dad right now, and you're not coming up to par. You're not getting it done. So I don't know. I'm not saying it's too late for them, but they need to go back. The dads need to go back to what are the greatest things my dad taught me or my gramps. What did I admire about my grandfather that is just the greatest thing he did or was, and try to bring that into your personality. Don't be afraid of old school and being, oh, you're old school. We don't do shit like the stuff like that anymore. That's not true. Old school doesn't mean antiquated or it doesn't work anymore. Old school is something that's been established for literally hundreds of years as a successful method.
Yes.
So, you may not like going to the library and opening up the encyclopedia and reading to research or to learn, but that works and it will never not work. I can go on my phone and reference something and get 5 different ideas on that same subject, and 4 of them are lies. So I think that fathers and grandfathers, they a big thing is you have to be a little less selfish. It isn't about you. It never. When I said, Dad, I'm getting married, I want to have kids. He said, I want you to understand something. Number one, when you get married for life. That's your first great dedication. And if you have kids, your life no longer belongs to you. Your life is dedicated to your children and their well-being and their future and every step they take. I don't
and it
see
never
that
ends.
anymore.
And you know this. It doesn't end just because they become 18 years old.
No, I'm dealing with stuff when my 33-year-old. It's just life isn't perfect. They're going to have problems. And as a dad, I don't want to be hovering, but I don't want them to fall. So, it's a life, like my dad said, your life is no longer yours. Your life is dedicated to them. And that means all of it, not the convenient times. I mean, you got to be less selfish. Like I said, it's not about you as a parent. It's about what you do as a parent, and the results are your children. They're your prize. They're the final result. And there's no baloney in that. I mean, the world can see your child, and if your child has got it going and a great kid, whatever, that's a reflection on you. Yeah, look what I did. But if they're not, that's also a reflection of you. Look what I didn't do. Look how I failed. Dads need to be there for their kids all the time, not when it's convenient. They need to be able to sacrifice. I don't like the idea of I don't know how many times when we give the kids food at night, we try to feed the athletes and, as much as we can. The school helps us, the cafeteria. And I've got kids that have got, Coach, you got any more? Can I take this home? Can I have 2 of these? I'm going, dude, you're going to go home and eat dinner. And they go, Coach, we don't do dinner. No, what do you mean you don't do dinner? Well, my dad's not working, or my mom is working at night, and there's just no money or no time. But that same kid's dad will roll up in a $70,000 Dodge because he's got to be a badass and he's got to have his truck and his macho and shit. That I hate. I have never put myself before my kids. And if you do that, I will not guarantee, but there's a good chance you're going to have problems with your children.
Well, and when they become parents, that example is then passed on generationally.
Absolutely.
You talked about old school, and I was thinking the other day, why would anybody young listen to us? We can't understand what they're going through. But then I thought, you know what? A lot of these problems kids face are not new. I mean, when you talk about the challenges that they face to perform, whether it's athletically, at school, or at home, or whether they're dealing with challenges and things of rejection, not getting the job, breaking up with your girlfriend. All right, welcome back. Since this is the first time we've been doing this, we've tried this podcast. We had a little technical glitch. It looked like our browser was too full and we got cut off. So hopefully everything will work out. We'll see when we get to the editing process. I'm certainly going to find out. But I think we were talking about issues that kids face that are the same today than they were back in our day. And that's, the challenge to perform well on the athletic field, in the classroom, at home, dealing with rejection, whether it's, you break up with your girlfriend, you didn't get a job, or you lost your starting position on whatever athletic team you are, and certainly dealing with disappointment. One of the things that I've seen in my time of dealing with kids as an adult, as a teacher, as a supervisor, as a coach, is the inability for kids to cope with failure and with defeat, and they just don't know how to deal with disappointment. Yeah. Are you feeling the same way with that? And how do we deal with that stuff? I mean, the kids will say, "You don't know what I'm going through." Oh, yeah, I do. I've gone through that. Yeah.
Well, what we go through, I don't think has changed since the beginning of time. It just, a different stage. I go back, hit me again.
Well, how do you get kids to develop coping mechanisms and dealing with disappointment and failure and rejection? And you're going to fall down, but you got to get back up.
Where do the kids focus most of their athletic teams and stuff? Where do they compete most? Do you think? I think gaming, right? Now,
good point.
When things go bad at gaming, what do? You turn it off. You reset. You start again. So they can't cope with reality stuff because they've been trained to just reset. And like developing the kids that don't want to be leaders of self-confidence. Well, when you try to lead as a mentor sometimes, and you're showing passion, and you may raise your voice like I do constantly, kids cry now. One of my best athletes cried, and I didn't know what to do. Why are you crying? Well, you yelled at me. I yelled at you because I care about you, because I'm trying to train you to play a violent game and be safe. I can't mollycoddle you like mommy does. So, a man has to be able to take ridicule. He has to be able to be taught. A good man never stops learning. I learn stuff every single day of my life. And when I stop learning, that means I'm done living. Got to learn. So, amen. I don't know. I would like to really think that we need more hands-on experiences. So when it does go bad, you could think on your feet and you could adjust. You could do a little MacGyvering. I MacGyver everything in my life. If something breaks, I figure out a way to fix it.
Yeah, you do.
And that's why I have value. My wife hasn't kicked me out of the house because I fix stuff. And I fix stuff for football, for my ranch, for people, for their hearts. I try to do everything I can. And I hope that people see that and I go, and a young man going back to developing character and being role models. I hope that somebody says, that old Coach Roboto, Coach Ross is oh my gosh, sorry about that. Coach Ross is a pain in the butt and this and that, but man, I know he cares. We got to be able to show we care, and we got to be able to handle stuff face to face. And a dad needs to have tough conversations with his son, and you need to be able to fight through the problems. And what are we going to do? Let's come up with an answer, not let's fail or let's blame the guy, point fingers. Oh, couldn't be my fault. I mean, how many times have you heard as an administrator, what did you do to my son to make him say that? You
Yeah.
know? And when,
That's such
I'm going, come
nonsense.
on, mom, come on, dad. What is that supposed to mean? Is it always not your fault? Is it always not you? And I don't know. It's just
Well, it's
when I was
accountability.
working with, yeah, when I was working with you in security, some of the things I heard out of parents' mouths were just mind-boggling to me. And therein lies a lot of your problem. The
Amen
kids
to
that,
that. I mean, that's that
yeah,
accountability factor and taking accountability for what you've done and what you do, whether good or bad. And if bad, are you going to learn from that by taking accountability and become better? And if it's good, give yourself a pat on the back. You did the right thing. And that we need to
yeah,
do. Parents today, to me, they want to be friends with their kids instead of
absolutely.
parents. And
And they're
that's a
afraid
big
not to be.
weakness.
That's why we don't take the phone away. They could say what they want. Well, I need to be able to get a hold of him. No, no, no. You're afraid to take away his prized possession. Now, when my older daughter was 17, 16, rambunctious, she had this thing about locking her door and said, you don't lock your door in this house. You don't need to. Well, I'm going to do what I need to do. Well, dad took the door off the hinges and put it in the garage. So, a parent now would go, oh, that's abusive. No, it's not. It's good parenting. Sometimes you got to be tough. And sometimes they're not going to like you. My daughter
Look,
hated me until she was 19, and then I got smart, and now I'm brilliant. Funny thing.
right. Well, it was like TJ. I got a call from the school one day. Hey, where's TJ? He's not in school today. What? And look, he got great grades, did all that kind of good stuff, but I'm not going to put up with getting a call like that. That's not honesty. That's not you being upfront with
Right.
me. You need a day off. You let me know. I'll call the school in. I know where you are. So guess what? I took his phone. I took his computer. I took his Game Boy. When am I going to
Yeah.
get that back? When I can trust you again.
There you go.
And then the next
Perfect.
time he needed a day off, it was like, hey, Dad, I can't go to school. I need a day off. Okay, cool. You've earned it because of the things that you have done in a positive way and taking accountability. You're being honest with me. I'll call the school in. You take the day. What are you going to do so I know what you're doing? And then, that was that learning lesson of taking accountability
Yeah.
and manning up.
Dad gets an A+ in teaching character. Son gets an A+ in being full of character. And how hard was that to do? It's probably one of the
You think
easier
I
things you
wanted to
did in
take
your
that
life.
stuff? You think I wanted to take that stuff and lock it up? No, of
Yeah.
course I didn't. But it
But
needed to be done.
yep. Because the end justified the means. And so you had to do what you had to
Bingo.
do, but in the end he developed the right character and made the right decisions, and you can't do a whole lot more than that. I mean, as a parent you could do a lot more than you do sometimes, but at some point you got to trust your teaching and what you've done, and how you've raised them, and let them go.
Right. Exactly. So, hey, my last question, and I know we've been on some tangents and stuff, but that's okay. Um, in terms of your conduct and building relationships and mentoring young men and being the type of father and an example, and learning from that, we learned both from our dads and from people. What role does faith play with you, Ross? What is role does that belief in God and trusting in faith, how does that play a role in developing men?
Well, I'm not traditional as far as I was born. I was raised a Catholic. I sincerely believe in Jesus Christ and the Lord and all of that. I'm not big on the routine of church and things. I don't think that's what's important.
No, I've always thought
Faith,
Christianity is a relationship with God, and religion is crowd control.
right, right. So the relationship. Now, if you grow up in a family of faith, then they're just by process of elimination. I don't care what faith it is. There's not a single faith that promotes selfishness, respect, lack of character, anything like that. Faith is, automatically you hit by the 10 commandments, you hit the two things that are most important to me. Don't lie, don't steal. So if you live by the 10 commandments as a person of God, then you have eliminated a lot of the barriers that go against character and go against pride and things like that. So I do believe that faith and what faith expects you, how faith expects you to live, how the Lord expects you to live, is every bit of that is a positive part of being a man. I believe that if and you got to believe in, you got to have faith.
Well, and I think that gives you kind of a jumping off point in terms of when you're trying to instruct a kid. If you know that they're someone of faith, then you have that, hey, you have that ability to appeal to that idea of faith in terms of their conduct, behavior, and teaching them to be the type of men they need to be.
Right. And faith is, believing in something that you can't see. It's faith. On the football field, you have to have faith in the man next to you. You have to believe that he's going to do his job so you can be safe and protected and successful. I believe that a game like football, because that's my thing, football is the last resort for a young man to experience that extremely tight bond between men that is the world ridicules in many ways. There's a love between teammates, and that's very, very I think that's extremely important in the long run.
No, but I get it. When you work hard in a sport, and swimming can be this too. I mean, when you're gassed and you guys have been going through this workout that has just kicked your butt and you've got more to do, it's not over. You got to keep going. Having that faith and that belief in the person next to you gives you that, hey, we're going through this together.
Yeah.
I'm on you. I'm with you. Come on, let's do it. Let's make it happen. Let's finish. That's huge.
Yeah. Well, and back to what I lost my chain. Football is, you depend on your very life, football life. You depend on the man next to you. The only other place we experience that is police, firemen, and the armed forces. There's not a tighter bond between teammates, men, fellow officers, etc., than that faith they have in each other. And that faith comes from the faith you're taught in your synagogue or in your church or at home by your parents. It's hard to believe in stuff that you don't see.
Amen. All right. Well, I think we're going to close it up here. One of the things that I want to give you an opportunity for a last thought for advice. What's the one thing that you want anybody who has heard this to take away from it?
As far as the parents, I want you to reinvest or rethink your investment. Make sure that your total focus is on your children, their future, their well-being, their college fund, their everything, and not yours. You had your opportunities when you were young. You had your time. Now you give your time and you give all your love and effort to your children, and it'll pay you tremendous dividends. And kids, you want to be strong men. A strong man does not use this as a pacifier, as a shield, as the truth, or anything else. This is a communication tool. That's all you need to do with it. You want to be a tough guy. You want to be a man of the world. You want to be somebody who can solve problems, do it with your hands, with your mind, not with this. You can Google anything. Google doesn't fix it. Learn how to do it on your own. Be good men and be proud of yourself. That's all. That's all I got.
You're the man. I appreciate your time.
That was big fun.
Thank you. And I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. I want to thank everybody out there who will be listening to this and hear from us. Make sure that you like and subscribe to the Red State Coach podcast. I know that we will have Ross Roboto on again soon as he shows his
This is old school.
helmet.
This one rated as high as this one. Believe it or not, old school is still good.
Amen to
Thank
that,
you.
brother. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you on the next one.